Hi, my name is Jervier, and today I'll be discussing mass incarceration in the United States and the impact that it has on African American communities. I'll be looking into the historical roots of the criminal justice system, the racial inequalities connected to incarceration, and also how activists and organizations have pushed for reformation. Mass incarceration, it isn't just a legal issue, but it's also a social, economic, and a historical problem that continues to affect millions of people today. So, what is mass incarceration? Mass incarceration is the extremely high number of people imprisoned in the United States. And the United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world, and it's not even close. According to scholarly research, more than 2 million people are currently incarcerated in the United States, and there are millions more that are on probation, parole, or that are living with criminal records. And those records have major impacts on every day or on every aspect of people's everyday lives. And although all racial groups are affected by the mass incarceration issue in the United States, Black Americans are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system. Um, One important aspect of mass incarceration is that the effects that it has continue impacting people that were imprisoned even after they leave prison. And research estimates that around 70 million Americans have some sort of a criminal record. And that makes it much harder to get a job, secure housing, receive loans, or continue an education. And because of this, there's an inequality and a limitation on opportunities for many people that are just trying to rebuild their lives after they've been imprisoned. The roots of modern policing in the United States can be traced back to slave patrols that were happening during slavery. Those patrols, they were organized groups that would monitor enslaved Africans and that would prevent their uh, attempts at escape and also suppress possible rebellions. According to the NAACP, these systems helped to establish patterns of racial control, and they continued well after slavery had ended. It's important to understand this history because it really shows that racial inequalities in the justice system have deep historical roots. After slavery had officially ended, Southern states created what are known as the Black Codes. The Black Codes were laws designed to restrict the freedom of African Americans. And they were designed to maintain a labor force that was cheap. Um, so, according to History.com, Black codes were restrictive laws designed to limit the freedom of African Americans and ensure their availability as a cheap labor force after slavery was abolished during the Civil War. And small offenses such as loitering and unemployment would lead to arrest. And these laws targeted everyday behavior. And if Black Americans refused yearly labor contracts, they risked being arrested, fined, and forced into unpaid labor, which was so similar to slavery. And at the same time, convict leasing emerged as another system for racial exploitation. The Equal Justice Initiative explains that after the Civil War, slavery persisted in the form of convict leasing, which is a system in which Southern states leased prisoners to private railways, mines, and large plantations. Those prisoners earned no food, and they faced extremely dangerous conditions, which historians described that system as slavery just by another name. The war on drugs was a major turning point in the growth of mass incarceration, beginning in the 1970s and stretching through the 1980s. Drug policies began to introduce harsher sentencing laws and a mandatory minimum punishment. Although drug use rates were similar among different racial groups, Black communities were policed much more heavily, and these policies contributed to a dramatic increase in incarceration rates, especially for nonviolent things like drug offenses. Racial disparities exist all throughout the criminal justice system, especially in policing. According to the NAACP Criminal Justice Fact Sheet, Black Americans are 5 times more likely to be stopped without probable cause than white Americans. The NAACP also reports that Black Americans are incarcerated at over 5 times the rate of white Americans. And all of this while about 65% of Black adults report feeling targeted because of their race. Research shows that Black and white Americans do use drugs at similar rates. Yet the enforcement of that drug usage, it's not representative of those similar rates. According to the NAACP, Black Americans make up approximately 29% of all drug-related arrests and 33% of people that are incarcerated for drug offenses. And those disparities started becoming even more severe during the war on drugs in the 70s and 80s that I had just talked about. Mass incarceration, like I've been saying, affects Black Americans very disproportionately. Black Americans make up around 13% of the United States population, but they make up nearly 40% of the incarcerated population. Uh, Research also shows that Black men face a significantly higher chance of arrest, conviction, and imprisonment than white Americans. And incarceration, it functions as a modern racial caste system. Through policing, sentencing, and incarceration, inequality continues. With mass incarceration also comes major economic consequences. And studies have showed that formerly incarcerated people face unemployment rates near 27%, which is higher than the national unemployment rate during the Great Depression. And a criminal record can make it extremely difficult to find stable employment, to secure housing, or to qualify for loans and educational opportunities. Incarceration reduces long-term wages and even earning potential. Mass incarceration also affects entire families, not just the individual person that was in prison. According to the Prison Police Initiative, Black families are disproportionately likely to have incarcerated loved ones. And families often face emotional stress, loss of income, or legal expenses, and challenges with raising children when either one or both of the parents are incarcerated. Uh, so the pipeline from school to prison, it's the it is policies and practices that increase the likelihood of students entering the criminal justice system, and that's especially black students. Instead of handling disciplinary issues through counseling or through support that is school based, many schools rely on suspension, expulsion, or even police intervention. Starting in the 90s, many schools began adopting zero tolerance policies that required strict punishment for a wide range of behaviors, even for just minor misconduct. And at the same time, schools started increasing um, law enforcement presence on their campuses. Because of that, some behavior that before could have been handled by teachers or by principals started to result in arrests or an involvement with the juvenile justice system. And these policies affect black students disproportionately. According to the national education data, black students are suspended and are expelled at much higher rates than white students. And it's oftentimes for similar behaviors. Uh, these discipline actions remove students from classrooms, and that increases their risk of failing or of falling behind academically, which then raises the likelihood of future involvement with the criminal justice system. Incarceration creates major health consequences. Uh, Links have been made from incarceration to depression, anxiety, chronic stress, and poor physical health. In communities with a high rate of incarceration, will experience instability and trauma that infect the entire neighborhood and affect future generations. Activists and organizations work to challenge mass incarceration and pushing for reformation. Groups like the NAACP and movements like Black Lives Matter have advocated for reforms in sentencing, police accountability, and for a greater investment in education and communities rather than simply a investment in punishment. So, in conclusion, mass incarceration is deeply connected to the history of racial inequalities in the United States. Its effects go deeper and go further than prisons. They impact families, communities, health, and economic opportunity. And it's really important to understand these issues so that we can address systemic inequality and so that we can create meaningful reform. Thank you.